Testing. How's that? Somebody give me some feedback that it's good. Yay or nay. I think it should be resolved. All right, good to go. Awesome. I appreciate you guys. So all that being said, as I bring up comments, the first thing I see is no sound. Like, God damn it. Well, I said a whole bunch of profound, secret of life type stuff before, but I forgot. So we'll just move on from here. So what's up, Jesse, Willie, Caceres? My man Caceres is in the house. Sean, good to see you. All right. Corey, what's going on, brother, man? All right. So I got the crew here. Well, what I was saying before is what I say pretty much at the beginning of every single show. What's up, Derek? Which is I am here every Wednesday, sometimes with sound, and at noon Eastern Standard Time, and I appreciate you guys being here with me. If you are not yet on my email list, please go to masterchim.com, sign up for that. The link is in the description, no matter where you're watching. Joe Brown, what's up? Corey, Cherrytown Vibe, what's going on, brother man? Good to see you. All right. So let's get into this movie and this movement, and let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. I got some takes that are probably not the normal conversations you'll hear about this, but I think valuable nonetheless, if for no other reason than to spark a little bit of reflection upon your own positions where this is concerned, maybe a little bit of clarity and understanding as I see it. But whatever, let's give it a go. So Sound of Freedom, I don't think, dare I say controversial movie. I mean, does it really qualify as being controversial? It's a movie that basically dramatizes a based on true story account of one guy's quest to fight child trafficking and save these specific children in the story itself, although the guy himself has a career that's pretty much connected to and dedicated to this, as far as I can tell. A lot of good stuff here. Felix, what's up, brother man? Good to see you. You're on Saxa. Good to see you, dog. So I wanted to talk about this weekend, during this week's show, and decided last night, late night, to go and catch a late showing of the movie. A couple things, obviously, where the movie's concerned. It was made, finished, ready to go 5 years ago, from my understanding, and nobody wanted to, distribute it. Nobody wanted to show it. Nobody wanted to put the money into bringing it to screens. That was since resolved, and it is now doing very, very well in the box office. And I bring that up because I went last night on a Tuesday night at 9:45 p.m. in a local movie theater here in PA, and there were probably 20 to 30 people in the audience. Now, the entire theater itself was basically dead. Just about everybody that was in the theater was there for this late night showing of this movie. So there is something to be said for it is resonating with audiences. I do live in Pennsylvania, which is, in the Poconos, which is probably mid to right politically. So there's a little bit of bias where that's concerned. But I would say, my anecdote aside, that seems to be how the statistics are revealing themselves, in terms of how popular this is becoming in the movie theaters. So I saw it. And the reason I saw it myself, it was a little bit of a late night showing. The kids are in bed. I didn't get home till, almost 1 a.m, which is a little late for me. And I didn't want to bring the kids out that late. I also, to be honest, wanted to see just how real they kept it. And I wanted to prepare myself. My kids will be watching the movie. Maybe not my daughter, who's 8. She'll, we'll discuss a lot of these things. But I certainly want my boys to see it. My youngest of which is 11. And I got to say, I was sitting in the movie theater yesterday. I'm watching this thing, and it is just a roller coaster ride of emotions, and you appreciate a movie, number one, that could do that to you, with you. But it went from anger to sadness to I kept going back to anger as the movie went. Right, that's something that was pretty much a common thing, and there was certainly an entertainment value to it, but it was heavy. It was connecting. When I got home last night, I went on online and I was looking at the movie. And as a matter of fact, no, it was this morning when I was getting an image to do the title card for the show. And I was looking at some of the reviews for the movie, and a lot of the positive reviews, are, I would say, I left a review, and positive one on Google, I think it was. And I was looking at the 1-star reviews, and there's something to be said for somebody being so motivated. It's like, I think there's a value in this, and this is probably, a good segue into my purpose for even having this talk. There are people who could not help but politicize what this movie meant. Had really some did, but a lot of them had no connection to the actual movie itself, but wanted to sort of dismiss the movie because of the political associations of some of the makers, I guess. I don't know Caviezel's political leanings. I know he's Christian. I know he literally played Jesus. I enjoyed him in was it Person of Interest, the TV show I used to watch he was on. But I really don't, I don't study these people. I don't really know their backdrop. So I looked at the movie for what it was supposed to be, in terms of a call to action of sorts against, our very comfortable position when it comes to child trafficking. And I think it did a good job doing just that. I don't see, and again, there's a bias that I can't get away from completely, but in my attempted unbiased, perspective, I can't see how this was politicized. Like there wasn't really a political component to any of this. Like some people could say, well, this didn't happen, and it's propaganda in that it is a hypothetical scenario that is meant to illustrate a narrative that is used in other ways. But that wasn't the case. There was literally like scenes in the movie. Now we understand it's a dramatization. There wasn't a camera crew following these real actors in the world, or these real people in the world, to sort of gather like an episode of Cops or something. So obviously there's going to be a dramatization, but towards the end of the movie, you get to see is there a spoiler alert? But not to get too much into the specifics of the movie, but there was a main part of the end of the movie that in the credits, they were rolling like the actual real world footage of that event that they were depicting in the movie. And it's really like, okay, we understand it's a movie. There are actors here, right? So there's going to be some scripts. There's going to be some music, and there's going to be, the cinematography and everything was incredible. But it was really telling that a lot of people just couldn't get past that. It's like, even on let's not abuse children, can we find common ground? And let me get to exactly what my thing on it is. I'm watching the movie, and there's obviously a lot of just raw child abuse that, and I don't mean like graphic, but just this almost sociopathic lens of how this industry works. And you could see how unsettling it was. I was actually at one point grateful that there were a bunch of women also in the audience watching it, because you got to hear when they were prompted to react, like what triggered them into, the gasps and the emotions and the tears and a couple of sniffles at some points. And, there are points where I'm sitting there and I find myself having to remind myself that there are roles in society, and I would not be doing anybody a service, myself included, if I were to judge people for not looking at this movie and having the same types of reactions that I do. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm a firm believer that pedophiles should be killed. I think anybody that sexually abuses children should be killed. I mean, I don't know if I could say it any more plainly than that. And there are a lot of people who agree with that position. But there are also people who will never be the one to do it, right? And I'm not saying anything illegal or anything like that at all. Let me just put that out there. I'm just saying in a general sense, we're having a conversation here. There are going to be people who hold that position who concurrently know and will say as much that they're never going to be the one to actually do it. That's not how they're built. That's not what their role is. And I think there's a lot of that nuance in what our roles are with any sort of transformation, what that actually looks like in the real world. Does everybody need to be a warrior against, child trafficking? Well, no, I would say I certainly would hope not, because not everybody will be one, right? So it's not everybody needs to get out and do something, because there are going to be people who are never going to do anything anyway. And I think relying on those people to do anything is just foolish. I think there's something to be said for, if there's one common goal that everybody should be striving for with something like this movie, it's to make sure people don't stand in the way of the people that are doing things, right? So I think that is a minimal effective level of change that we could all bank on, or at least strive and design to achieve. It's like, can everybody just get on board with this? As it stands now, the answer is no. And, a lot of the movie, the one-star movie reviews reflect that, because I'm sure, even though it's a limited number of people, it is a sort of microcosm of a subset of society, whereby like they either don't think it's real, or to them, it's just not a priority over their fanatical political, identity and wanting to win at all costs at that level of the game. Right. So I think there's something to be said for looking through a tribalnomics lens now, right? So tribalnomics, when I wrote tribalnomics, the idea of it was to create a sort of codified blueprint of alliances, of tribe, of alliance dynamics. Like, how do people get along? How does this happen functionally? What is the value and or even purpose of alliances, and how do we best navigate these things? I think when looking through a tribalnomics lens, I think we need to come to grips with, and to what level we have this conversation with ourselves or others, again, may speak more to some roles, like I referred to before, over others. But there are going to be people who need to have an understanding that there are always going to be children who are sexually abused. That's always going to happen. That is always going to happen. For the rest of humanity's existence, that will happen. And there are people who are just not realistic in their relationship with this tragic circumstance, because they don't live fully in reality with some topics over others. Like, some things are just so traumatic to them that they will, almost broad brush this dream, I wish, wouldn't it be nice sort of lens over something that is very real. Children will always get abused. So there are people who, and I'll use another application to sort of illustrate this point that I'm making. There are people who will eat meat, right? Will eat beef, but cannot see a cow slaughtered. They'll eat chicken, but they cannot see a chicken killed. They will eat fish, but will not see what it's like taking a hook out of the mouth of a fish just caught, from the ocean. Like, and then obviously I'm trying to draw a scale here. Like, there are some people who are so disconnected from the reality of aspects of their lives that are integral to their identity. People eat food, they eat meat, and they're completely disconnected. So there's a certain point where even having that dynamic being out there are people who will look at this movie And they will not understand that, number one, what it looks like to actually do something effective to these people, these perpetrators. But also, what is it that you think you're actually going to be able to do? Oh, we need to hire the right person in office. We need to pass the right law. That'll eliminate it. Like, no, that's not how that works. It's never going to be eliminated. Why? Because people have the ability to have children. So so long as people have the ability to have children, children will be abused sexually, physically, and mentally, what have you. That is just a fact of life, right? It's non-negotiable. Now, what is it then? Is that is the position against this? If I say, well, we're never going to stop it, why am I so up in arms? Last night watching this movie, because I understand through the lens of tribalnomics that it starts with me, and then it builds outward to those people associated with me. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine a couple of weeks back, and he was asking me about abortion, and I told him, well, I think if women are going to kill their babies, they should kill their babies. Like, I know, rough statement. Probably could have softened it a little bit, but the gist of it is, I don't think that we're ever going to stop it. They are killing their babies, though. But I think it's just foolish. It's almost childlike to say that we're going to somehow pass a law to stop this from happening. So a little bit more pragmatically, I've often said, well, I want to live in a state, right, in the U.S., where abortion is illegal. And like a couple of states over, let there be one where it's legal so they can all go there. Like, I think when we start looking at these things pragmatically, it doesn't make for a very black and white conversation, and a lot of the emotion and the rage gets lost when you start dealing with the nuance of these types of topics. But getting back to, child trafficking, it's like, yeah, all these people should be killed. If you are so dysfunctional that you do not have anything preventing you from commoditizing a child, you don't have a role in society that is safe for the society. Because even if you were to not act on those feelings, those positions, those attributes, psychographics, however you want to describe it, even if you're not acting on it, everything that you do is going to be biased in a direction to where that becomes normalized. So if you've acted on it, yeah, you got to go. It's like pulling the weeds out of a garden. Not that I've ever done that, but you understand the metaphor. These people are ruined. They are no longer functional. The one thing a functional tribe, I'm not going to talk about society right now, I'm talking about a tribe. The one thing a functional tribe needs to be on board with is the protection of children, because that is the procreative formula that allows the tribe to survive generationally. Like, this is biology, this is philosophy, this sociology. There's so many lenses you could put over this to just see, well, if we don't protect kids, it's game over. So it's one of those bedrock foundational positions that every functional member of a group should have. Protect the children. These people who aren't connected to that, they're disconnected from those fundamental principles. They are products of the aquariums in which they were reared, they were raised, or they were traumatized, right? However they came about this worldview. And there's just a limited amount of resources that I would say should be invested in these people. If you are a pedophile, if you sexualize children, like you're not changing that. There's a whole discussion about how they come to be and why. And I think it's important. All right, let's find out how we we create, or how is a pedophile created? And the argument is, well, they were molested, so it's not their fault. My whole thing is, well, if a pedophile creates a pedophile, it's almost like vampires. Like if a vampire makes a vampire who makes a vampire, at some point you just kill the vampire that's in front of you, and you at least cut off the line of whatever's going to be done after that. It's really not complicated. I would say that there are a lot of criminal ideals or criminal attributes that individuals have on varying scales of dysfunction that require some form of consequence or restrictive sort of interaction to make sure that they're still functional in society. However, there are some things that you can't rehabilitate. If your sexual identity involves the sexualization of prepubescent children, you're broken. You're broken. Oh, but if I don't act on it, if you don't act on it, why do I even know about it? I've said this before. Well, what about pedophiles who don't act at it? Like, how the fuck do we know they're pedophiles? Well, they've come forward, right? That's acting on it, by my criteria. Because what are you trying to do? What would compel a pedophile to say out loud that I'm a pedophile? Well, the simple rebuttal to that would be, well, they're seeking help. They're seeking help from what? From their sexual proclivities, or the things that they find themselves being attracted to sexually. Well, they know it's wrong then because they want to change it. Yes. Well, then they should just not do it. Well, then, yeah, but they're just trying to get help because they know they don't want to do it, but they shouldn't do it. So why are they asking how to not be pedophiles? Why don't they ask how to not just be sexually attracted to, in the first place? Like, I don't know about any people, and it could be out there, world's a crazy place. Any people who maybe identify as pedophiles but didn't tell anybody, but just went and had like a voluntary castration, or just, entered into some, there's a certain point where we just have to understand what we're dealing with. These people will prey on children. Now, if they're preying on children that have nothing to do with me, I'm not going to do anything in that case. Why? It's because there are too many children who would fit that bill, and I do not have the resources, nor is it my identity, to resolve that for the world. So there's a cultural need where this is concerned, right? So if you construct a code, you claim a culture. When we look at, the Overton window, what's referred to as the Overton window, which is like this sliding spectrum of what's accepted politically in a society based on the just movement of the beliefs of that society. Some things become taboo, some things become more normalized and accepted to the point where it is almost encouraged or incentivized, right? And this scale is always sliding. Well, to that, or in that vein, when we look at the society that is okay with pedophiles being, regular rights-having individuals or members of society, like, if we want to change that, we need to start codifying the beliefs and the positions of the collective that disincentivize that, because that eventually will be what will claim the culture in the form of sliding that Overton window away from that being so accepted. This is the era of tolerance. And when you look at what tolerance requires, it is the omission of action in scenarios where action would have been warranted by your beliefs. That's what winds up happening. There's a restaurant down the road from where I live, and every June for Gay Month, they put out this big rainbow pride thing. Every time I drive past it, I am disgusted. As a member of society, a functioning member of society, I cannot pull my car over and pull down that sign, because the argument then becomes, well, why don't I drive around pulling down all the signs? Why don't I go to Target and do like what a lot of other people did and destroy like the gay kids section, right? Because Target in Gay Month has a gay kids section. Why don't I eliminate that? Why don't I? That would be the consistent position, because that's not who I am. So how I look to affect change needs to be functional in terms of all the people that are connected to me and my ability to be reliable to them in whatever way that I've obligated myself to them. If I see a pedophile, like right now, I can go on the Watchdog site and see every pedophile that lives, in any zip code, or like, why do I not go and do that? Like, I'm somebody who said I think pedophiles should be killed, but at the same time, I'm also saying that it's not my job to do that. There are plenty of positions that I take and actions that I take to make sure that my children aren't victimized. But if my children ever were, I'm killing whoever is responsible for it. Like, I will do everything in my power to kill them. Part of that also informs me that I need to be very, very cautious about putting them in situations where that abuse can occur, because not only is the cost of such a omission of awareness the fact that my child would be abused in some way, but then the rest of my children are going to probably lose a father, because I'm going to murder whoever did it. All these things are connected to the actions that we take. So again, looking at this movie and what it drives, at a minimum, it should tell everybody to get out of the way of the people that are actually doing something about this. Get out of their way. Support it. There's some people who still can't even do that. So you have the people that are, that are still getting in the way because of their political obsessions, which tells us, who are not so, mentally ill or dysfunctional, it tells us that, okay, so not everybody's on board with this. So what could we do? Well, I would say at a minimum, make sure your children are fucking strong. How do you make sure your children are strong? Make sure you're strong. How do you make sure you're strong? You have a plan to become stronger than you are. How do you know when you're strong enough? You might not, which is why you should endeavor to become stronger over time. You should look to hold in high regard those philosophies and positions that represent strength, that represent either a stoic, almost disaffected relationship with our surroundings, all the way to a more anti-fragile, empowering position. Pressure to power. But wherever it is, it starts with you. It starts with you, then it starts with the people that are affected directly by you. Understand, we're never going to be able to control everybody. How many people do you know over the last, 5 years, 6 years now, that due to their political obsessions, they've abandoned spending time with their families. They've abandoned their health. They've abandoned, the growth of who they are spiritually, intellectually, physically, everything that would be considered a virtuous pursuit or trajectory of one's efforts. They've abandoned it completely because of this obsession with politics. On both sides of the spectrum, mind you. I don't want to hear about Biden being retarded. I don't want to hear about Trump having the election stolen. I don't want, what's the point of those conversations at this point? Okay, there was a time where it might have been relevant to have that discussion, and this is what I was saying way back then, what does that have to do with you getting enough sleep, lifting weights, moving every day, speaking to your kids, engaging your wife, making good on your promises, educating yourself to become more valuable, learning how to interact with people more effectively. Like, what do those things have to do with the things that are right in front of your face every day? This topic is no different. Child trafficking is a problem, clearly. Anything that I could do, I absolutely will. But I'm not like everybody else. Just like if there's a pedophile looking to, to prey on children, call me. I'm the guy. But I don't expect everybody to be called in that situation. Nor do I think they should be capable of being called in that situation. I just don't think that's the way that large numbers of people work. Let me get to some comments here. Willie's on mission. Smash that like. That's right, Willie. Johnny Groove, what's up? Simple solution, gonna rope, 100%. I mean, there's a point where, they got to go. Why? I'd be lying if I said it wasn't some cathartic, move to do something. If you guys have ever seen the movie Law Abiding Citizen, I think a very, very good movie. Great for this one particular topic. A lot of times movies are great because of the merits of their entertainment and all the aspects of movie making. Some movies are great because of the conversations that they initiate. And I think the latter really pertains to Law Abiding Citizen, where the main character's wife and daughter are killed right in front of him, and the guys get off. And one of the guys rats on the other one. Like it's a whole shit show. But basically, this father winds up becoming like a domestic terrorist, for lack of a better way of putting it, looking to get back at everybody that was involved in those guys getting off from the charges of murdering his wife and daughter. And there's something to be said for, well, what are we supposed to do? And in the character that's played by the singer, what's his name? The singer actor. He played Ray Charles, whatever his name is. He plays the district attorney who basically cuts a deal with these attackers, which is, it starts this whole chain of events. And we live in a society where there are always going to be people who are disconnected enough because of the offset of our individual moralities in this type of mixed society, who are going to say to themselves, well, why would I risk affecting my career negatively just to try to give you some sort of justice or vengeance or whatever it is, like when clearly I'm the priority here, like, and it's not my kid or wife that was murdered. So like there are people who will functionally be like that. And I think, again, it comes down to, well, who are you as an individual? What are your beliefs? How are you raising your children to be? However you believe, or whatever your positions on this topic that we're discussing today, whatever they are you having conversations with your children that reflect them? And I don't mean about getting graphic and talking about a lot of these things for kids who aren't yet, mature enough to handle those conversations, but are you building children who will turn into adults that are compatible with that position? Or are you one of these people that just lets every kid, have his own way in life and, create another disconnected entity, breaking another chain of every ancestor that came before you, through you to nothingness? Parents should be raising their children to get along with their grandparents and become compatible with the culture that connects the two of them. Right? There is this continuity that should be respected. It's because it's where we get strength, right? In the movie that I saw last night, right, The Sound of Freedom, the opening scenario is, again, I'm not trying to spoil the movie. Everybody should go and see it. I'm gonna go see it again. I'll wind up bringing my sons and my wife maybe, but this dad basically brings his kids to some audition, your kid's going to be an entertainer, going to be on TV, and that's how they get them. And it's like, well, like I don't let my young children, my older ones, it's a different story now, but like my daughter is 8. Like, can she have a play date in your house? The answer is no. No, she can't stay in your house. And like it's just non-negotiable. Like, there are certain things that I'd rather err on the side of overprotective than underprotective. Because what does underprotective mean? Right? Because if nothing happens, you're just protective, right? If something happens, though, you clearly weren't giving enough protection. Therefore, you're underprotective. So underprotective just means one thing. It means you volunteered your child to be victimized, right? So let me go to these other ones. I agree with a lot of you that are saying, you're agreeing with what I'm saying. Joe Brown says, I agree, death, but they should have a horrible death. First, stick their joint in a bullet ant nest, then a few days later, a venomous snake bite them repeatedly. Okay, that's a specific image there, Joe. So here's my take on that, on torture, right? I think there's just trying to follow the logic. There's value in giving somebody a slow death. The surface, value is it's going to make you feel better, right? So there's catharsis. There's some sort of a weight that whatever is initiating you torturing this person created, and this is a way of you dealing with that. I'm not willing to say it's productive, by the way. I'm not saying it isn't, like, I'm just saying the observation is there is a cathartic aspect to it. But I would say the more valuable, potentially only valuable point in that is that it is to disincentivize those people that are on the fence about doing it in the future. It's like, you're not just going to be killed. There's worse things than that. It's going to end in that, but we're going to have something to do with you before, we do that. And there's a disincentivization, as a part of it. So I think that's the value of what it would be. I cannot say that if somebody victimized my child, that I would not need the cathartic, aspect of whatever transpired. But I also know that in order to become as strong and functional as I possibly can, the less catharsis I would need, the better. And it's something that every individual just needs to be honest with himself over, right? Because that's the thing. Like, whether you're weak, strong, super emotional, sociopathic, like wherever you fall in all these different settings and all these different spectrums, you just need to honor yourself. Because if you are doing something you are not capable of living with, then who really wins in this situation? The guy, like I would sleep like a baby, if I had to kill somebody who molested one of my children, like that. Like, if I wasn't sleeping, it would be because of what happened to my child, not because of the violence that I would do. But that's me individually. There would be people who would, take care of somebody who victimized their child and never be functional again. And I would just ask, like, is it a possibility that something could happen to your child, or just taking the violence out and looking at the violence itself? It's like, is there a possibility that you're going to need to be extremely violent at some point in the future? The answer is always yes, by the way. Some people, live in such a deluded state as to think like, no, it's an impossibility. But since the answer is yes, that's why I've been a longtime advocate for building a relationship with violence. But there are going to be some people who they're going to need a little bit more catharsis than others, Cherrytown Vibe writes, Joe told that little girl, you're one sexy kid. Don't tell your mom I said that. These folks are referred to as minor attracted persons. They're the plus in the LGBTQIA plus. That shit keeps getting longer and longer. Yeah, the minor attracted persons, just understand, like pedophiles, there is a a functional usage of language when describing them that way. Minor attracted persons is a rebrand, right? A repositioning. It is really just to try and sever the associations with the term pedophile. I mean, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, but of course they're going to try this. Of course they're like, if you're somebody, and this is, I think, a valuable place to be mentally. If you were a pedophile, wouldn't you try to normalize pedophilia? Right? So let's not misunderstand the why. Like, it's bad enough he's a pedophile, but then he tried to pass a law, or then he tried to start an organization. Like, well, yes, of course that's what he's going to do. We need to stop being surprised when people follow the actions of a nature they've already exposed to us. Of course they're going to do these things. Trying to tell this to my more political-minded friends. One such person abandoned his children and put them in harm's way by his outrageous political views. I quit watching, can't take that seriously. Again, and obviously, that's going back to what I was saying earlier. If you have complaints, if an individual, one of you right now watching this, has complaints, it comes down to, so what are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do about it? If you're not going to do anything about it, then continue to complain. My advice is shut the fuck up then, because you're not fucking helping anybody. If you want to complain about something, do something about it. To just complain about it is cathartic, right? In PSYOC, they call it leakage. It's this emotional outlet. I need to let some of this pressure out. But another component of that is that takes the form of communication to recruit people to approve of those actions. In fighting, you'll see, just sparring, let's say, when somebody's had enough, you'll see it in their body language. You'll see it. They'll start making faces. They'll start making noises. This is communicating to the other person, hey, you're the alpha. Take it easy. Like, I'm not a threat anymore. Like, you got it. Like, I'm being submissive to you. Like, this is all communicated in that leakage. It's all communicated in that just inability to control your emotions. We understand that. Sean says an MC movie recommendation list would be dope. I've done them in the past. I think at this point, like, I think you'd really have to think about, like, movies for what, right? Derek says Larry Nassar found out the hard way. I don't know who that is. Larry Nassar. I'm going to look up Larry Nassar in real time. It sounds familiar. Oh, the gymnastics doctor. Yep. Well, yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens. And I think it's, I've been locked up as a teenager. I was locked up for 2 months. I didn't do any hard time up north, and I don't claim to be one of those guys, but I was locked up as a teenager for 2 months. And in jail, you will see people of all walks of life. Obviously, some walks more than others, right? But there is still an overall humanity connected to it. And I say humanity in a sense that there is a functional capability of interacting tribally amongst these people. You see it reflected in a very alpha, violent way in prisons. However, these are still people who functionally know how to have conversations and know how to exchange value in the form of alliance and know how to follow certain codes and display certain disciplines. Like, these are functional individuals. When it comes to pedophilia and pedophiles, like, a lot of the people who are in prison, like, these are people who have children that can't see their children anymore. These are people that have wives and daughters and sons, and they're not connected to these people anymore. So when they see, a pedo in lockup, like, well, yeah, of course that's going to happen. Of course it's going to happen, because What's your value? What's your worth? You're a bottom feeder, right? You have no value to anybody. All right. Because Sarah's right. Chris Hansen had a show where these pedophiles would get locked up as they were trying to have sex with kids. I remember that. They'd be thinking they're meeting a kid and Chris Hansen would come out. I think they stopped it because I think one of them killed themselves. Like whatever. To me, it's like, well, now it's like, fucking, that's how you get movie money, right? No, it didn't go up, it went down. I think one of them found out what it was and like ran in the other room and like blew his brains out or something like that. Like, whatever, you just needed him for that one episode anyway. Some problems solve themselves. Oh, man. Cherrytown Vibe writes, we're in the era where people are taking action, speaking up in their positions, not sitting on their ass. I discovered that there's an anti-suffrage movement going on for women. I think there is a lot of old wisdom that shares the concept, the idea of cyclical realities, right? Of this begets this, begets this, begets this, begets the first thing, and so on and so forth. We look at the seasons, and how there is a cyclical, not only a cyclical nature, where the attributes of these seasons could, in some cases, be completely different. Yet, we've learned to accept them, live with them, look forward to them, prepare for them. It's defined who we are, our ability to problem solve. A lot of the merits of what's driven our ability to create Western civilization is connected to the problem solving. And the survival factors involved in navigating, rough winters and the seasons as they were. Like all these things are universally visible, right? And I think looking at society, of course, there's going to be a cycle. At some point, the ball hits the bottom and bounces back upward. Now, are we there yet? I don't know. Would be nice. But I think it is a more powerful position to say, whichever season I'm a part of, I'm going to be the best version, the strongest version of me as I can be. It doesn't matter if it's summer, spring, winter, fall, what have you. Like, again, at the self-alliance scale, it's all about trying to spend a life becoming as strong as we can be while removing every flaw along the way. We're not supposed to get there. We're not supposed to be perfect, but what other direction should we be aiming our efforts toward, right? Judge Cohen, what's up, brother? He says, very similar to the carjacker I saw today who fled, got run over by his target and accidentally blew his own brains out. Cop being interviewed about it had to stifle his chuckle. Yeah, I saw that video too. And, you just gotta ask yourself, like, how many people that are living in this society would function in any other society? It's like, what is it? Heinlein, specialization is for insects. Well, through that vein, or through that logic, how many insects or insect-like personas do we have? Are we currently taking care of in this society? Where you just move the landscape a little bit in any direction and they're completely dysfunctional. I saw a video today of a kid, he might have been 20 years old, and he was in a bathroom with a jacket on, a vest, a bulletproof vest. And he shot himself with I don't know, it was a 380. I don't know what pistol he had with him. He shot himself in the chest and he falls and, he lived. But after he lands on the ground, he does the voice from Urkel from the old TV show, that I'm okay, like when Erica would say that after he'd fall out the window or whatever the fuck. So here he is shooting himself with a pistol to entertain strangers on social media, and before anybody says anything about, urban kids in the hood, it's like that's what Jackass did for years, and it was entertaining. Like, we just got to ask ourselves, like, what the fuck are we incentivizing? What are we teaching our children? Right? Construct a code and you claim the culture. Like, what is the code that they're following right now? If you want to change the culture, it starts with you and your home. What is the code that you're following? Or do you just expect everybody that you're connected to do the right thing on their own without any guidance or leadership? My children understand what we stand for because we have conversations about it. We stand for this. We stand against this. That's what we do. If at any point in the future they decide to not be part of the we, they're going to have the ability to do that. But I'm not negotiating our standards just to accommodate their offset positions. Like, that's not my job as a parent. My job as a parent is to install a system of formulas that will allow them to be productive when they reach adulthood. Part of that is, helping them solve their own problems, helping them have an opinion on things, not crushing them when they're fired up about something. I want to talk about it. But by the same token, I don't allow them to have so much freedom that they disconnect themselves from everybody who cares about them. Right? FL Treasure writes, we're in a soft society right now that has allowed major degeneration to thrive, and I'm confident the natural will reset things. The pendulum will eventually swing, as MC has stated. That's right. The universe will have its balance. It is a cycle, and which season are we in? There's a point where you say, well, who the fuck cares? It's like, motherfucker, are you strong? Because if you're weak, then what season we're in is irrelevant. Listen, there are people who have heart attacks in the winter, the summer, right? There are people who get divorced in the spring, the fall. Like, these things, these deficiencies that exist at a self level of scale, like, these are the priorities. Square that away so you could actually be worth a fuck at the largest scales of conflict. But have they walked the fish yet? If you guys, that's a reference to a video that my second oldest Kaizen made, where he's busting my chops. I think it's on this channel where you can go, and I think it's called Walk the Fish, and he's actually taking an editing course and stuff, and he had done this with a phone. I was pretty impressed, even though it's busting my chops. It was pretty good. I got entertained by it, but that's what that's a reference to. Cherrytown Vibe writes, by the way, Monday's email about properties sparked a great conversation, and your point was validated when it reported how a lady who died in a flood was trying to save her dog instead of herself. Oh, priorities, I think you were talking about, not properties, priorities. And again, like, if a lady wants to give her own life to save her dog, I could have any position that I want on her worth or the value of her philosophy or her outlook. Like, she can do whatever the fuck she wants. She can do whatever she wants. If there's a lady that wants to kill herself to save a dog, like, I'm not saying we shouldn't save somebody who's drowning or save, like, but there's just a certain point where it's like, that problem's going to solve itself. Again, we have a limited number of resources. What is the priority in which they're allocated? We got to stay connected to that. Without that priority list, we're just going on feels. If you guys ever watched the classic comedy The Jerk with Steve Martin, he makes a bunch of money, and after he makes a bunch of money, like millions of dollars, he's basically has this office where people come in and they give him some hard luck sob story or investment idea and just try to get him to cut checks. Well, that's who you become. You become the person that whoever can get in front of you, they're the one that gets your resources. It's hard to build when that's your mindset. You're just a product of whoever puts themselves in front of you right now. And that's the only scale that dictates who you're going to be as a person, right? We should be connected to a code that transcends that. In Tribalnomics, it's called the Transcendent Alliance. Read the chapter again if you didn't. All right, guys. That was good. I think I covered a lot of the stuff that I wanted to. Go see that movie. It's definitely well worth it. I'm going to go again, probably bring my sons to go and see it. It's a good cause. It is a great conversation piece to have, and I also think it's doing what it can to help affect, that change, to reclaim the culture. Is it going to be successful? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's what can we do right now? Do it. That's it. All right, guys, I appreciate you. If you're not getting my emails yet, make sure you go to masterchim.com. Get my free emails. I'll give you a free program in order to do it. All the links are down in the description. Aside from that, I will see you either on tomorrow's email or next week's show. I appreciate you all for spending time with me. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.